material for physics. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. And that also passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the information item, the budget development timeline that we're used to seeing. This is for 2015-16. Do board members have any questions for Lydia? We'll be looking at this in more depth in our study session a little bit later. This is just the timeline.
So if the legislative session goes till the predicted June 30th date, we're already a week past our recommended staffing timeline. What's your plan of how you're going to adjust this timeline as we go through the next couple of months?
We have some hard and fast dates that the legislature has not changed. For instance, if there's a reduction in fourth, I believe that you have to be notified by May 15th. And that hasn't been changed, although it's been discussed. The budget itself is still due August 31st. There's been no change to that date. We have operated in this before when 2 years ago the budget didn't come out till June 28th or 9th. And I'm kind of expecting it. So we will hold true to this as best as we can. And the risk is that there's last minute changes in August.
Thank you, Lydia. Any other questions on this item? Seeing none, we'll move to the next item on the agenda. Board reports and communications, and we'll start with future agenda items. Any requests there?
I might have brought this request before, but I couldn't remember. So as part of our community groups that we're doing, our conversations with the board.
Oh, okay.
That's what I meant to say, conversations with the board. Did we discuss having a specific Hispanic conversations with the board?
Oh, I guess it's
we did. We did. The EDTF is scheduled to do
I couldn't remember whether we discussed that or
Hispanic.
not, and maybe putting it on an agenda, even if we can't do it this year.
Yes, we did discuss it. We haven't scheduled it.
Okay.
So
The natural leaders was going to come up with some dates.
So we are planning a special session on the boundary work that will be for Spanish-speaking
Right.
families, and that'll be at
That's
Woodmore, I
different
believe,
than
somewhere
the
later. Yes.
I saw that. That's what prompted it last night when I was at the PTA meeting.
Correct.
I thought about it.
And Leanna's going to be working with some of our natural leaders to do some outreach to our Hispanic community to get a better idea from them about what types of outreach or communication activities we can initiate that would be better aligned to their needs. And so I think I'd like to give her the opportunity to do that. I think that'll give us some good information to chew on as we move forward.
Yeah, and I think that aligns with our survey, like if we want to get good information from that community, as we were talking about, if that's the format, conversations with the board, us being able to connect with that community as we are with the broader community would probably help us to extrapolate some of that. And then the next thing I was thinking, based on kind of that same format, was with teachers and students, specifically having, and again, we might not be able to do it this year, but I think Amy and maybe Sandy talked about at our study session today, was getting student input and maybe having more of a specific conversations with the board, and that is centered around students, teachers, or community would be invited, but it would be specific to the staff and maybe students or just staff, so that we're getting all these multiple perspectives.
in the past, the board has gone to them. One of the challenges with students is their busy schedules, and asking them to come and join us for yet another thing is pretty problematic.
That's what I was thinking, maybe if we did teachers and students.
Yeah, but we have gone out to the schools in the past. The principals have organized breakfasts with a broad spectrum of students where we've had an opportunity to just chat with them in an informal way. And going to them seems to make more sense in a lot of ways. just as a thought. But what I'm hearing you say is that you would like more discussion around adding some conversations with the board to include these groups. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, and it might not be able to happen this year, but with all these big decisions coming up, I think it's really important to include, and I'm not saying we're disincluding, but including the staff and the teachers, and maybe having it more, it would be a different conversation a little bit, and our question and prompts might be different than when we're just going to the community. So I think we might be missing part of these voices. I'm kind of hearing that, and so that's why I'm bringing it up.
All right, great. Noted. Thank you. Anything else? No, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is the debrief of our study session. And just for the benefit of members of the audience who were not able to attend that session, I'll just briefly recap, and board members can add as we continue the discussion. But the board has asked staff for scenarios on what it would take to implement later start time in 2015, in 2016, and 2017. We are in 100% agreement that later start time has been the clear direction from the community. So that's the rest of that conversation is what we are about to debrief. So just in thinking about, we've already had the conversation, so if you can just recap your takeaways from the conversation, and then maybe what do you see as the next steps, which we've already addressed in general, but if you have others to add that would be more appropriate in a board meeting session, please feel free to do so. Dawn, I see you leading towards
Why don't you start with your takeaways, since you would be the board president?
I just
kind of
gave,
recapped them.
Yeah, I just did that with the recap, and I may add something at some point, but if someone else would be willing to start, that'd be great.
I'll just really quick. My takeaway is very similar to yours, Janet, in terms of I'm happy with the takeaway that we are all in agreement that no later than 2017, and getting information. I know that staff is incredibly busy with everything else going on in the district, and I'm grateful that they are able to get us more information to see if we can make that date earlier. And so I just wanted to reiterate my thanks for that. The fact that it's going to be here in 2 weeks, I know is tricky for them, and so I look forward to talking about it again in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
This is Roberta in the row here. I guess my next steps that I think I heard that I don't know quite where to do this, but asking our reconfiguration task force, elementary, middle, and high school, that we need to create some parameters of what we're asking of them. So figuring out when we're going to have that conversation so that we can create those parameters.
No?
I would say that the recaps were fine on that. I appreciated Amy's comments that no later than 2/17, and that brings to mind a question that I have is, do we need a motion at this point that we have 2017 or earlier? Do you think that staff is going to move ahead for 2017 or earlier, or do we need to make a motion that confirms that so that it will happen? What do fellow board members feel about that?
So I think Larry can maybe speak to that, but my personal feeling is that we don't really have enough information to have a specific enough motion to move forward. I think the staff heard us pretty clearly that we are interested in a later start in 2017 at the latest. So I don't feel like for that to be worked on, we need a motion. I think
I've just been doing this long enough that I've seen it kick down the road so many times that I just would not like to see us kick it down the road again just because, oh golly, well, that doesn't work either.
I think
So-
the difference is that we have all expressed pretty strong agreement around it. I think there's survey results came in. But I'll let Larry speak to that just because he's
on the hot seat.
Well, I definitely heard there's strong consensus from the board that no later than 2017, we somehow move towards a later high school start time. And we had, I think, really good conversation in the study session about the fact that that will involve, you know, some choices and decisions that are made over the next couple of years as we gear up towards 2017. So what I would suggest, if it's comfortable with the board, is let us do the analysis on particularly what 2015 or 16 might look like, and bring that back. But we can certainly bring an action item to the January 27th board meeting that would affirm the board's desire to make sure that by 2017, at the latest, as part of the grade reconfiguration and boundary adjustment process, that a later high school start time is incorporated in that transition.
Thank you. In the interim between our 3:20, 3:30 adjournment of our study session and the beginning of this session, I heard some things that made me have not quite as much faith as I had in staff that they would, you know, come forth with a real strong, this is our best case scenario. I heard some statements of, well, that's really not doable at this point. And I just would like to reiterate that I expect staff to be giving us the best case scenarios that they can do for 2015, and if it is a 2015-16, put those together in 2017 comparison, that will happen.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate again. You know, I want to let people who know more about this weigh in, but I would say what I said in the study session again. I believe that there are options and opportunities for 2015. The question would be the level of program disruption or change that is tolerable between now and September. So I think I think there probably are pathways to get to 2015. I'm not sure. I think we need to have a very frank assessment about whether or not they're realistic.
And I would like staff to be very open to some of the suggestions I heard at the microphone as well. I think our community has been studying this to death for many years and had some good suggestions there about cost-saving things that could be adjusted.
Yeah, I just, you know, again, it's the impacts to, and I can't remember who made the comment of, you know, lots of programs that affect smaller numbers of students. I think that's really where the rub is a bit, because to those small number of students, those are very important programs and have been, and I think that's been one of the major factors that we've wrestled with over the years, is how to incorporate those needs of a decided minority into what might be the greater desires of a larger majority.
And I'm sure that'll be part of staff's report.
Absolutely.
Okay.
My takeaway is one, we have a board goal of reaching to the community. I don't know which board goal that is, and I think this was a wonderful exercise in us actually bridging, not the gap, but bridging what the community desires are, finding out what they want, trying to find out how to implement this with us, and this was a great way for us to make a bridge and for us to kind of hold hands together. That's how I see it, and I think it's a great community building thing that we've just done, and I'm hearing from the community that they're feeling, at least from the people that are here, satisfied and elated in some respects that we've listened and implemented what is best for kids and what they've kind of known all along. So I just want to thank each of us up here, myself included, that we were willing to take this risk to do a study, because I knew that there were a lot of different factors going in, and is this the right study, and are these the right questions, and it's a hard thing to do. We're kind of putting ourselves out there, but the risk is worth it, and so hopefully that will help us moving forward and to do more of this when it arises. Also, that my takeaway was that we're having some differences which are to be expected over 2015, 16, 17, as you guys mentioned, and over 8 o'clock versus 8:30. So I think maybe in the next couple weeks, each of us can possibly look at different research or things that we find that would help, because I wasn't really looking for that to bring that today. So that, I'm going to go back and then kind of look and see what I can find, and just, maybe we can get it more narrowed down to, is 8 or 8:30 better? So I'm sure we'll have some sticking points over that, and we'll have to figure that out. And I just want to commend us again on doing this and working together. And I would like to do that motion next, in 2 weeks, because I think it solidifies the work that we've just done, like Sandy was saying, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but not going back and that keep going through the same things. Now we're to the how, and I think that speaks to the community and to ourselves. It keeps us accountable to keep moving forward in this now. And the community sees that we are serious and we're not going to change this. This is a path that we're on. We're going down it. It's just a matter of how to implement it, when, and time.
Thank you. And I'll just add, when we talked about the survey, I initially, back in September, this would not have been a choice of the time to do it, because I always feel like if we're going to ask, then I don't want to ask until we're ready to use the information. But in hindsight, it's great, regardless of when we implement it, to have this information now. So I'm really happy that whoever was pushing for the survey did so, because I think that's given us some great information. And I think, just to piggyback on what Kimberly said, that we've revealed an area where we're not reaching our community very well, and that's the Hispanic community, and some more intentional effort on reaching that population is, I'm all over that. I would really appreciate that as well. I'd like to get Leanna's insights into that too. And I think that was one other thing that is in my mind, but it's gone now, so.
Action.
No, regarding the motion, I just want to make sure that we have enough information to make it actionable. You know what I mean? I want us to not. Oh, I know what it was. I was talking to one of our high school principals in the interim time, and there is a window of opportunity here, because they're going to be asking for students to fill out their schedules. So depending on what option we choose, regardless of what option we choose, they need to know all the pieces of that option before they start to build student schedules, or we're going to create a nightmare for them. So that was another takeaway.
And I think taking action sooner rather than later is a good idea also, because with the report coming out from the EDTF, the proposed draft of the boundary changed, I think that's going to require obviously a lot of effort on all our parts, and working with the community to start turning that direction. So I think working on this sooner rather than later is a good idea.
Okay. Any other?
Yeah, the last thing I was saying, I think what's actionable is just that we would do it by 2017 or sooner. So we agree to that as a board, or someone doesn't agree to it, but we have it as our policy, I guess, to move forward.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts before we move on to the next agenda?
I'm just a little confused. Are you saying you do not want it as an action item?
I didn't say anything.
Okay.
I didn't say anything about that.
Well, that's what.
No.
That's
But I
what
said
heard.
it's
So
going
it's
to
gonna-
be on the agenda.
Yeah.
I made no reference to it, so, yeah.
Okay.
No, what I'm saying, maybe I see still a question on your face. What I'm saying is that we want a later start. That's pretty vague. That doesn't give them really any information. We want to start at 8 o'clock. We want to start at 8:30. We want not these programs to be impacted. I think there's just a lot of details that we also need to provide staff with in a timely manner. So I don't see that as being possible by the 27th, and having a motion to solidify our support for it for a later start by no later than 2017 or 2016.
I disagree. I think an action item, as Superintendent Francois described, would be a simple thing
That's what I
to
just
add
said.
on.
That's what I just said.
Okay.
I said there are
Okay.
more pieces to the puzzle that we need to be clear to staff in a timely manner about, but I'm happy to have that action item next time that solidifies our common understanding that we don't want it to be later than 2017 for a later start date. Is that okay? All right. Next agenda